Thanks for joining us, man. Really appreciate it.
How y'all doing again? Happy New
What's
Year,
up, Fred?
everybody.
Hold
All
on.
is good.
Fred. So I'm not one to call folks out.
Okay.
But this guy across from me has been a Jaguars fan forever.
Okay.
Right? Then mysteriously, even after what happened last year and the disappointment of Urban Meyer, he was rats off a ship. Right? Now he's trying to get back on the ship.
That's not true. I'm not trying to get back on the ship. It's just
I'm not letting him. All right. I don't have time for phony fans. You either with your team or you're not.
First of all, that's not fair because I went through Blaine Gabbert and Blake Bortles. Second of all, Fred, here's what happened, okay? My heart was in the right place because I saw what was happening with Tua, which I felt like he was getting ripped for everything. You know, he does something wrong. Tua's a bum, Tua this. And I watched with Trevor Lawrence, and I'm kind of like, man, Trevor Lawrence is kind of just stinking up the joint, and he's getting along like scot-free, like nobody's calling him out on it. And now, like, you know, I may have said some things like, you know, he's no good, he's a bum.
Yeah, I want to just be clear about this.
Look,
like Trevor Lawrence stinks, period. I'm just putting it out there. I think he stinks.
I said that I think he stinks. And then he went off and he, you know, was the best quarterback in the league statistically for like the last 8 weeks and has led them to the playoffs. And Leroy wants you to have me answer for my crimes as a Jaguars legend.
You know what? I mean, it happens. You have a right to, as a fan, to critique, criticize, you know, do whatever you want as a fan, right? It makes you, you know, emotions are involved when you're a fan. And same thing with any relationship. You have your highs, your lows. You can have moments where you go through a divorce or a separation, but you can come back in the house at some point. So it's all good. I forgive you.
Thank you, Fred.
You know, but
I ain't letting him off the hook. Phony
you know, they got this hashtag DTWD, Duval till we die. So I firmly believe in that. And you know, you stick around long enough, good things will happen.
Urban Meyer was a tough one for me, Fred.
He was tough. Urban was bad for the organization. He was bad for Trevor. You know, if Trevor had let's say someone like a Doug Peterson as a rookie, or maybe even like a Andy Reid, like those you know, like a QB whisperer, you know, which is what I think Andy Reid is. He has amazing quarterbacks that play for him all the time. Yeah, I've never seen him with a bad quarterback. Coach Peterson being a former QB, and great, he gets the QBs together too. Those guys, Wentz and what's the other quarterback? Carson Wentz. And,
Nick Foles.
Those guys haven't done a thing since they left Philly. You know, so I mean, Coach Peterson's he's grooming Trevor, and he's turning Trevor into the quarterback we all thought he could be when we drafted him number one. So I'm gonna forgive his rookie campaign too, because he was, you know, partnered with obviously somebody who didn't necessarily get the NFL game.
We don't normally do this in the league, though, Fred, right? We don't normally look at a player. We're so quick to call players bust, but we never, ever go to a coach and say, you know what? It's not the players. It's this coach that's not developing these guys. We very rarely say that, and Urban Meyer has earned it. Like Urban Meyer earned that, right? I've never heard that with other coaches. They usually put it on the plate.
You know, they have a few that have stood out. Another Jaguars. You can look at the guys that have been fired in a year, you know, less than a year, whatever. Mike Mularkey, you know, he falls into that category. And he's a Gator, and I like Mike a lot. I don't know if he got a fair opportunity, but he didn't coach longer than a year. You just look at what happened in Denver. You have a potential Hall of Famer in Russell Wilson, coming from Seattle, obviously, and I don't think Russ played great, but I think that marriage, the both of them together, stunk up, you know, the Denver regime this year. But what's his name? Not Nate. I can't think of the coach's name.
Nathaniel Hackett. Yeah,
Nate Hackett, who's the OC. You know, when Aaron Rodgers just got the MVP a year ago, he was also in Jacksonville. So much stuff. But coaches do stink it up. But the beauty about the players in terms of evaluating players, you look at most contracts, if you have a 6-year deal, you get good money up front, but everybody's evaluated on 3 years. You got a year to stink it up. You got an injury year, and then you got a bounce back season. If you're not doing anything within that window, you're out of there. And I think coaches deserve, unless they're just awful, I think they deserve the same thing. They deserve a window to prove if they're good or if they're deserving or not. And if they're not, you get them out of there.
Talking to Fred Taylor. So Fred, down here, obviously the big news is the health of Tua. He's ruled out for Sunday. How do you think there's so many opinions on him all the time, which is, part of the thing that led to me with Trevor, because I've never seen a guy like Tua. Like, everything is scrutinized with him, his health, his play, his press conferences, all of it. So you find out that he's not able to go. Do you think that this is something that that's going to be tied to him for the rest of his career when you have 3 concussions in a season and he's not able to go in a playoff game?
Look, let me say this first. I haven't met Tua yet, but I love him as a person. I love the way how he's a character person. It seems he's just standing in the paint, and he's blocking all of the negativity the best he can. It followed him from college. He was drafted, hurt, and ever since then it's just followed him. You can't control concussions. You can't control injuries, for that matter, in the NFL, a game that's so violent. You have guys running around and tear ACLs simply by running without even being contacted. So it's a part of the game. That stuff happens naturally. But yeah, it's going to follow Tua his entire career, man. The Fragile Fred thing followed me my whole career. I churned out 13 years. Most guys can't get past 3 years, which is the average. But that followed me. If you look up Wikipedia stats, it has Fragile Fred as a nickname, which I don't think is deserving because I show longevity. I did have my share of injuries, though. However, I came back and I fought through, and I retired 15th all time. Guys that were healthy couldn't do that. So, I don't think I deserve that name. But Tua, he plays a position that is protected nowadays, more so than it was back in the day. Yet he still finds himself under the microscope for these concussions simply by just falling and hitting his head on the ground. And more than football, like we saw with Damar Hamlin, a week and a half ago, it's about the human in the life of these guys. Yeah, we get out there, we risk it, we entertain, we get paid handsomely to do it. But at the very end of the day, football is still a game, and I think his health should be his priority. I understand he's a warrior. I understand that mentality in terms of in football sense of the term, being a warrior, not one to quit being a competitor in that sense. Yet he has his full life in front of him. When you transition from the football game, a lot of guys don't know which way to go. A lot of guys fall into depression. They lose the support because people were just riding their coattails for the money. Then they jump off that bandwagon, and then it becomes tough. That's when the real game starts, the game of life. That's not an easy game. Football, you have routine, you have structure. The game of life, you got to put that together day to day, each and every day, small steps, small wins daily. And I fear that if he continues to go down this path and get these concussions, that he will not be able to enjoy or benefit from the money he's made now. I just want him to have an amazing life when he's done playing. A playoff game, that means nothing to me. As a player, I didn't get it, but now as a guy who's been away from the game, I like to do on the podcast. I like to speak to these young men, just give them perspective. Your decision is your decision, but perspective, and understanding what to expect when you're done playing football, that's what it's about. But yeah, that title, that tag, label, whatever you call it, it's going to follow him. But he should be man enough to say, I'm going to do it. Whether I want to play or whether I shut it down is my decision. I don't give a hell of a crap what anybody says.
Well, is it really making a conscious effort to keep track of where these concussions are heading, or trying to give you a basis of how to recover from them in a proper method? When we played, you get a little concussion, they take you to the sideline, give you some smelling salts, hold some fingers in front of your face, and if you manage to get through that, you back in the game.
Yeah.
And it's ignorance on everybody's part. So I'm not just saying it's anybody to blame, but now it's just different. It's different at how we look at it, Fred. It's different how you even talk about concussions right now.
Right.
At no point in time when we played were we talking about the long-term effects of a concussion. In fact, we used to watch ESPN every Monday and see people get knocked out.
Look forward to it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, Leroy, that's I remember a game in Denver, Mile High. You know, I got tattooed twice up there. My only 2 concussions that kept me on the sideline for a little bit, for at least a quarter. You know, you have those thoughts of you know, what happened? I missed the entire, is it the 3rd quarter already? Like, what happened to the first half? You know, so those type concussions, and both of mine came in Denver, Mile High. You know, the altitude was a bit different, and I don't know what it did to me, but anytime I got hit, I had a concussion where I missed at least 30 minutes of the game. But yeah, we were taught to be tough. You wanted to be tough. You wanted to say, man, I ain't gonna let nobody knock me out. I got to get back out there. I got to help the team win. But because of the, you know, the NFL has evolved a lot. The business is over a century old or whatever, and it's evolved a lot. But for as old as it is, it took them a while to learn it. And I think that if that lawsuit didn't come up, the most recent concussion class action suit didn't come to fruition, we'd be in the same situation. Concussions would not be documented, you know, be overlooked. They're still struggling now to figure this thing out. Like, how do we keep and protect these players? Because if you look at Tua, I wanted to blame the Dolphins. Like, you guys should be on high alert after the first 2 to make sure whatever signs, this is the one person in the entire world you're focused on, should be Tua. And to be able to not recognize it and to see the effects later in the game where he was having a brilliant game and then it went totally left. A lot of that could have been the concussion, but I think that they should have been able to identify something. I mean, I don't know.
It's
but,
hard. It's hard. It's hard. Like, I watched the game and I didn't really come to that conclusion until after the fact.
Right.
Like, the guy on Twitter, it was like they didn't even. It was one of these things where, like, nobody called it out. There was no spot or anything. And then some guys, like, on Twitter, he's like, I was at the game and I saw this hit.
Yeah.
And then he put up the split of the stats. We're like, well, are we making excuses for Tua? Is this legit? And sure enough, Mike McDaniel comes out the next morning. Is like, Tua's off to see the doctors for a concussion.
Right. So, and you know, that's exactly what I was speaking to a moment ago, because if they're going to go unseen, where he could still get out there and get in the game, so we really run the risk of it being something greater, you know, as he, you know, continue to play the years to come, or even when he's done playing. That's not the road you want to go down, you know. And it's unfortunate. It's part of the game, as much as they're trying to protect those guys at that position with the senseless roughing the passer calls and all this other stuff. You can't put your weight on the guys. There's so much they're trying to do to protect that position. But if he is as you know, as I don't want to even say fragile. I don't even like the word
susceptible.
Yes, yeah, right. So if he's susceptible to have these reoccurring concussions come without taking a major blow, then he's an extreme liability. But I love Tua, man, as a person. I love the evolution of the player this year. He was trending in the right direction, the MVP conversation. It's just sad to see, you know, someone who works so hard, who's shaking off all of the negativity, have to go through this stuff. I don't like it for him at all.
Talking to Fred Taylor, you guys can catch him on the Pivot podcast. Our guy Channing Crowder, Ryan Clark, they do a fantastic podcast where they sit down every week with A-list stars. They've you know, it's the who's who. Go check out their YouTube channel if you haven't already. They have Travis Kelce this week. Best thing you got from Travis Kelce this week, Fred? What did you like getting from Kelce this week? Yeah,
I mean, Travis was amazing. You know, just his development into a tight end from not playing in position, you know, until 3 years before he was drafted. 2010, they transitioned him from a quarterback. You know, that's a major pivot, I would like to say. But I think the one thing that stood out to me from Travis is he was talking about, processes, structures and processes, and having things in place, and not looking at the big picture in terms of success, but developing a routine, reinforcing that with your commitment to the routine, because routines can get boring, and tiresome because you do it so much, but you have to reinforce that through commitment and discipline. But it has to be baby steps and small wins. He said that was a promo that I put on my Instagram page that a lot of people really were attracted to. And I've always believed that. I didn't start having more success in the NFL and less injuries in the NFL until I developed a routine. Coming in early, being that guy that showed up cold tub every day, manual exercises with the trainers, and those little things do apply to life. So that's what I try to speak to on the podcast, just dropping gems and giving nuggets. And Travis left us with some valuable nuggets, talking about Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid. He mentioned Cheetah. He showed him love, gave him his flowers. But yeah, he was a great guest. He's an amazing guest.
Well,
no. That was all fine and great. You let him off the hook.
No,
you let him off the hook.
Someone called that
Fred.
a pardon. He gave me a Jaguars pardon.
He gave you a Jaguars pardon. You giving pardons out now?
Hey, look, listen. I'm not the Jaguars president, but I get you. I understand what you're saying. Look, he's back. I think he understands, now how it goes, and we all go through that. We definitely go through that, man. Urban was tough.
A little bit better, if I'm not mistaken.
Wow.
Oh, look at him.
Missing the wig.
Look at him.
Let's go.
Wow.
Hey, listen.
Pretty good.
That's sunshine, baby. Let's go.
Hey, Fred, I got a lot of 28s in the closet. I'm going to put this next to. This is all right.
Let me know when you're ready for me to ink one of them. I got you.
I appreciate it, man. Listen, you're always awesome with us. Thanks you so
Fred.
much. You, Channing, Ryan, you're doing a bang-up job with the Pivot Podcast. It's absolutely great. So thank you for spending some time with us again. We really appreciate it.
Appreciate you.